Hello and welcome to another Vlogmas. Today's Vlogmas day 12. Today we're, oh my god, hello everyone. Today we're going to be looking through all the books that I'm not looking through, but looking at all the books that I read this year and kind of just like talking about it a little bit. I'm very fucking excited. This year was a good year. I think this year was the first year that I was actually like, you know, I gave myself a goal and I like fulfilled it in terms of reading, so I'm very excited for that. And also it's December. It's, you know, I'm still reading. I'm reading currently If We Were Villains. I'm like, I think on Act 2. I finished Act 2. I'm also reading Beyond the Story, like the BTS biography. So those are the two books that I'm reading right now for December. Now we're gonna start by talking about the books that I read this year. Yeah, I'm actually gonna be looking through my reading journal to see like all the books that I read and in the order that I read them, because I think there was like a fuck up like on my Goodreads. So good old in writing it is. Here they're called like my reading log, where I wrote like every single book that I read this year up until now. As you can see, is almost filled, so yay. And I'm very excited. Obviously we're gonna start with January, which was a very good beginning of the year because I started by reading the Cruel Prince trilogy. I read 3 books: The Cruel Prince, The Wicked King, and The Queen of Nothing. I gave The Cruel Prince 3 stars, The Wicked King 4 stars, and The Queen of Nothing 4 stars. I will say, like, it's for sure one of my favorite universes ever. I still haven't read the King of Elfheim Learn to Read stories because it's been sitting on like my cart forever and I never like actually bought it. So I maybe next year I'll actually read it. And also there's a new book in the series, technically is it in the series, called The Stolen Heir. I still haven't read that one as well, but it follows Oak and the other like girlie from the ice court, if I'm not mistaken, or like the ice thing, whatever it was going on. Not gonna lie, I'm not really that interested in the spin-off of them, but if it's a continuation of the story, I still would like to read it. I'm not like opposed to it, it's just, you know, a preference. But it was a great beginning of the year. I fucking love the story with Carson. Oh my god, holy shit. I truly love the story, and I love Juliet and Carson together. And the universe was very, very fantastic, I guess I would say. I loved it as well. I really appreciated the story. Once in a while I'm like, oh, should I reread it, should I not? I feel like I should. Maybe next year try to reread, if I'm in the mood to reread like the Cruel Prince, like the trilogy, the whole of the trilogy. I feel like I would be able to read it a lot faster now that I've you know, already know the story and stuff. So I feel like that's one of the like little things that I have in my head for next year, like maybe reread the Cruel Prince. After that we move on to February. I hate that word as a English as a second language speaker. Fucking February, I hate that book. I read 2 books in February. I read a biography, autobiography, I'm Glad My Mom Died by Janet McCurdy, and I also read It Ends With Us. That month was a little bit... Clearly there was something going on because I'm Glad My Mom Died was absolutely fantastic. I still remember reading, and I love the book as well, the actual physical book. It's in like a hardcover. I always love hardcovers. I don't know anything about Janet McCurdy except for the extent that she was like a child star. So every piece of information that I got in the book was new. Very deserved 5 stars, and I really enjoyed it. Also, I'm pretty sure this is my first like autobiography that I'm reading. And then we have It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. That book was also a trip and a half. It was on the mouths of all the book talkers for such a long time, and Colleen Hoover became such a like, oh, she's like the book talk author that people really fucking loved. And I gave the book 2 stars. Yeah, I did not like the book at all. I think I have a video on this channel where I rant about it, and then I rant about it again as like my mid-year, like talking about the books that I read. So let's move on to March. I read 2 books. As you can see, I'm starting to slow down the speed a little bit here. In March I read 2 books. I read The Picture of Dorian Gray, which is a classic, and I read Shadow and Bone, which is the first book in a series. So The Picture of Dorian Gray is I gave it 4 stars, and it's honestly, I think, one of my favorite classics. It would be like The Great Gatsby, The Picture of Dorian Gray. They're like my 2 buddies. I fucking love those classics. And Shadow and Bone, I gave 3 stars. Like I said, it's the beginning of a trilogy. I don't know why, but in the beginning kind of read like fanfiction, and I think it's because I don't think it's the author's fault. I think it's because I read too much fanfiction. So now it's not like there's a plot that I'm like, oh, this is, I've never seen this before. It's just like I blame my teenage self for, you know, reading too much fanfiction because holy shit. But the book was still good. I think the characters were a little bit like especially compared to the other duology that I'm going to talk in a little bit, because I read as well. Compared to that, they were so bland which is insane because the main character Lena has superpowers. Like she's one of the Grisha. Like she's fucking insane. She's cracked. So it honestly should be more interesting. Your story should be more interesting. But I was kind of just like, what? And then we have April, which in April I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 books. In April I read 6 books. In April I read The Ex-Hex, Estudo em Vermelho, which was like a study in Scarlet. That's the English translation. I read The Politics of Reality, Here You Are, Siege and Storm, and Ruin and Rising. Let's start by The Ex-Hex. It's a cutesy like romance, which I think it was the first romance that I ever like read. It has some elements of magic, but they're very in the background. I mean, it may seem like they're not, but the actual story is very like it's solved like that, when actually there's a lot of stuff going on that should have been better explained. But as what it is, which is like a romance, I fucking loved it. They're very cute. Also the main guy is Welsh and he keeps saying cariad, and I was like, ooh, I'll take it. It's very cute. I gave it 5 stars, I think, because just like the feeling of reading the book made me so fucking happy and giddy. I was like giggling and like kicking my feet in the air as I was reading the book. So that's the feeling that it gave me, so I gave it 5 stars, and I still stand by that. I still fucking love that book. It's very cute. The next one is A Study in Scarlet, which is by Arthur Conan Doyle. Oh yeah, by the way, The Ex-Hex was by Aaron Sterling, if I'm not mistaken. This is a memory test for me as well. I'm trying to see if I can remember authors, because I'm horrible at knowing like authors' names and like what books they've written. I'm fucking horrible at that. But A Study in Scarlet by Arthur Conan Doyle. This is the first, I think, Sherlock Holmes case. I think that's, yeah, the first Sherlock Holmes case. I liked it a lot. I read it in Portuguese. The book was in Portuguese, so I actually enjoyed it a lot as well. I felt like I think it's not the first like Sherlock Holmes book that I read, but it's the first, I guess, that is by Arthur Conan Doyle, which is weird because there's a lot of like Sherlock Holmes like spin-offs, I guess, where it's like Sherlock Holmes solves this case, but it wasn't actually like written by Arthur Conan Doyle. So it's like, I read a Sherlock Holmes book, but it wasn't Sherlock Holmes. It's like I really want to read more Sherlock Holmes by the actual author. So this was the beginning of that. I like the mystery, I guess, and I like the resolution of it. There was this part in the middle where they took too long to explain because like I think it's the way this book is written. This book specifically was written because there's like, I think, a fuller version. This one was a way smaller version, so it still tells the story, but there's parts missing, and I guess that fucked me up a bit because it went from this is what happened in real life, this is what happened right now, to suddenly going back in time and never explaining that it was going back in time. You just started telling this other story, and I thought for a second there that there were 2 stories together, because I was like, how does this make any sense? And then later on, that's when the dots started connecting, and I was like, oh, this is the same story, it just went back in time. And I just said like, it really bothered me, and I was having trouble like continue reading the book because of that. But still, you know what, I'll take it, whatever. It still was a good book. I gave it 4 stars. I like the mystery, I like the way it was resolved, and I also like the story behind it, so 4 stars. Then next we have The Politics of Reality. This is, I think it's called The Study of Feminism or something like that. The full book, and I also forgot, oh my god. The Politics of Reality, Essays in Feminist Theory by Marilyn Fry. I've had this book for a while because I saw like another YouTuber like read it. Not like a booktube or anything like that. This was before I was way into like booktube, and another YouTuber recommended this book, and I was like, ooh, that does seem interesting. And I'm always kind of interested in knowing more about like reading more about like feminist theory and like feminism in general. I did read it and I really loved it. There was a lot of interesting concepts in there in the book, and it's definitely one of those books that I'm gonna have to like reread once in a while to make sure that I like really got all the information that I needed. But it was a really good book. I gave it 4 out of 5 if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so I also recommend you guys read it if you're interested in stuff like that. So yeah, the next one is You Are. This is like a Chinese manhwa. Is that a name for it? Donghua. It was all in Mandarin. I read the first volume. I didn't know that there was like an insane amount of volumes because I only bought one, the physical one. And then when I searched about it on the internet, first of all, I think the second one already came out, but there was like, I think like 1,000 fucking chapters or something insane like that, and I was like, I'm not gonna read all that. But I really but I did read the first one, like the first book, and it was so fucking cute. It was adorable. I love the main characters, and I love their like connection to each other, I guess. And then we're gonna move on to Siege and Storm and Rising, the second and third books of the Shadow and Bone trilogy. And my feelings about it are, I gave them both 3 stars. They were like okay for a story. My logic behind this is that like they were okay for a story. I enjoyed my time reading it. I thought it was a bit bland. which once again is insane because we're talking about fucking like superpowers. They're like Grisha, they have these insane like powers. It's just, I don't know, like the interaction between the characters made sense, but they were so like, I don't know, like, you know, salt and cracker kind of characters. I was like, it's not like they didn't have deep backstories, I guess, because they did, but you know, it felt, I don't know how to explain it, but it felt like weird. I enjoyed it. Just because I gave it 3 stars doesn't mean I did enjoy it, because I did have a good time reading it, and I still recommend people read it if you're interested in any universe. I still haven't watched the actual like Netflix series of Shadow and Bone, which I'm excited to do, so maybe one day. Then we're gonna move on to June, which I only read one book, which was a classic and was 1984. That book grew with me in more ways than one. My goodness, holy shit, was that book insane. It took me like the whole month to read it, if not more, if I'm not mistaken. This is kind of like the time where I started realizing that I need a lot more time and space to be able to read a classic than I do any other like regular book. Classics just drain me, not only because of like the way they're written, but it takes me a lot more to actually like read every sentence and understand like the plot and what's going on and everything in between. I gave it 4 stars. It's still like, I would say, one of my favorite classics, but it's not my favorite classic. I like the story, I like everything in between, I like the social commentary and everything like that. In July I only also read one book, which was one of those like little black book editions, which was Love That Moves the Sun and Other Stars by Dante. This was like my first kind of dip into poetry, because it is, first of all, Dante. I really want to get like the actual like the 3 books of you know, Paradiso, Purgatorio and like Inferno, because it's insane. I know it would take me a lot longer to read. I mean, if I think classics take me long to read, I can't even imagine like poetry. Even like Portuguese poetry, when I was in school and I had to read it and like analyze it, oh my god, it was insane. And it's like my first language. I can even imagine having it to read like analyze things like that, but in English. But I really want to do it. It's a project that I really want to get to. Move on to August, where I read 4 books. I read Master and Margarita, The Cloisters, A Terrible Beauty is Born, and The World is Full of Foolish Men. We're gonna start by Master and Margarita, which I think is a classic. Is written by a Russian, I think, author. By Mikhail Bulgakov. I know I've like heard of this author before, because the name is familiar, you know, besides the fact that I read the book. I have heard of this author before, but for some reason I never really heard or seen a lot of people talk about like Master and Margarita. I don't know if it was because like maybe I did hear people talk about it, but because I didn't know what it was, I just kind of like tuned it out. Or even like in book talk and stuff like that, maybe I'm just like not really paying enough attention. But Master and Margarita has to be like one of my favorite classics, right? You know, alongside The Picture of Dorian Gray and The Great Gatsby. Like Master and Margarita is about like the devil and stuff like that. I love books about that kind of stuff that involve like the devil and mysterious shit like that, and this one is one of my favorite classics by far. I loved reading it. I love the story, I love the ending, I love everything about it. I love the like magical elements in it. I like the moments where I was like, oh my god, am I going insane while I'm reading this? I loved every second of it. I love the description, I love the way the author wrote. I really loved everything about it. And in the actual book, much like a lot of classics nowadays, if not like every single classic nowadays, they have always a little bit of like before or after, where they talk about like the context in which like the book was written and what happened. So even the story of Mikhail Bulgakov was very interesting. So like everything about this book and surrounding this book was very interesting. I think he died while he was writing the book, or like a little bit after he wrote the book, something like that. I would highly recommend you guys go read Master and Margarita. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. Then we have The Cloisters, which I gave a 2.5 stars, because oh my god, The Cloisters is by, I think this was a debut novel, and if it wasn't, I hope it was, by Katie Hayes. The point and the plot is that there's like a murder there. The way that like I read the synopsis and I was so interested. First of all, the actual book is beautiful, like in person. It's also hardcover, and it was very like inexpensive, which was one of the reasons why I bought it, because I was like, it's a hardcover and I think it was like 15 euros max, and I was like, ooh, interesting. So I picked it up, I read it. I read like the cover, the like synopsis on the back, and it looks so interesting because the way they described it was like she starts working at this internship at like a museum, and then there's a murder, and then they have to figure out who it is. To me that sounds perfect, right? That's like, you know, mystery and Scooby-Doo-ish, where they have to figure out who it is. That's fantastic. That seems perfect. There's never a second in the book that I was like, oh my god, who killed this person? I knew immediately what killed this person. I knew immediately who the culprit was. And also the main character is very unlikable, which is insane. There's a lot of like plots. There's a lot of like points where she talks about like her history, her sad history. She's like, oh, my dad died and I was so close to him, and I was like, oh my god, that's so sad. But then she's like so incredibly rude and unlikable at times, where she's like, and she's very like pretentious. I feel like that's the word for her to describe her, is pretentious. She would sometimes drop some fucking lines like, that this is how people are, ruthless and blah blah blah. She's like, you've been in the working here for like 2 weeks and you're already saying that you're like accommodating to being in this ruthless bitch because that's how everyone is here. Like, that's not how it works. I think my review like that I left on Goodreads, I'm gonna fucking read it to you guys, because I said the mystery wasn't really a mystery. Also, as someone who's not from the US or New York for that matter, the main character is incredibly pretentious. She was barely there for a month and she was already talking about fucking over people to better her career and blaming the city for it. That wasn't the city's fault, that's all you, girly. Because she kept being like, oh, I'm gonna do this, or I'm like I'm gonna lie to the police to better my like position or status, but that's just what the city does to you. And she's like, bitch, that was all you. The city did nothing. That was you. You did that. Then we're gonna move on to A Terrible Beauty is Born and also The World is Full of Foolish Men. I'm gonna clump them together because they were also like the little black book. I think they were both poetry as well, and I really enjoyed it. I'm trying to remember which one of those I like the most, because I gave them like, I gave A Terrible Beauty is Born 3 stars and The World is Full of Foolish Men 4 stars. So I'm guessing that the World is Full of Foolish Men was the one that I like the most. September, so we're almost close. We're almost close. What the fuck? I read The Velveteen Rabbit and Wuthering Heights, which two very random books, but The Velveteen Rabbit I read in Portuguese. It was the translation in Portuguese, which I found out as I was reading the book that even though, first of all, the book is very old, like The Velveteen Rabbit, but the Portuguese translation is actually very recent, and I did not know that. So I was very excited when I saw the book. I remember going to the fair and seeing the book, and I was like, oh my god, is this The Velveteen Rabbit? And I picked it up, and it was. Oh my god, I was so fucking excited. And like the guy that was selling me the book, he's just like, oh, that you picked really good. That's a very like special book. And I was like, I read it. It was very beautiful. I know, you know, are you reading a children's book? I don't give a fuck. That book is goddamn gorgeous, and if it's a book that I haven't read before, I don't care if it's just a children's book, I'm still gonna read it. I really loved it. I gave it a 5 out of 5, obviously. Very gorgeous. The illustrations were very gorgeous as well. Moving on to Wuthering Heights, which is a classic. So how do I explain it? I feel like out of all the classics that I read this year, that one is definitely my least favorite. It's not that I hate Wuthering Heights. First of all, I think it took me a lot longer to read that book than I should have, and it's also so boring. You know, the whole, you know, we're getting married, no actually domestic violence, no actually what's going on, I'm gonna kill people keep dying. That my review of the book is just like, why do people keep dying? I get it, it was a thing of the times, but goddamn. I gave Wuthering Heights 3 stars, and yeah, then we're gonna move on to October. I read 5 books in October. I read 6 of Crows, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, Crooked Kingdom, Good Girl Bad Blood, and As Good as Dead. October was a month full of very incredible reads. First of all, 6 of Crows, I gave that book 4.5 stars. This is in the same universe as the Shadow and Bone series. I do not understand how the fuck you can write such a good book about that universe whilst also making 3 super boring books about that same universe. Like, these 6 of Crows should not have been this good, considering the fact that like over there in Shadow and Bone Land they have superpowers and shit. 6 of Crows is about super fucking normal people who are just like thieves and villains and whatever. Okay, sorry for the shitty audio quality, but the thing is, I just realized that technically Shadow and Bone and 6 of Crows are the same thing, because they both have people with like the Grisha powers and they both have people without the Grisha powers. So honestly, I don't know why the fuck 6 of Crows and like Crooked Kingdom is so interesting, and then Shadow and Bone kind of falls flat for me. It was so fucking good. I love 6 of Crows, and also while we're here, Crooked Kingdom I think has to be one of my favorite books like ever in the fantasy genre. Is this even considered? I guess it is, because of like Nina and whatever the other guy, what was his name? I forgot. The only like thing that I have to complain, I guess, about Crooked Kingdom is that the death scene of the guy that I forgot the name of didn't have as much impact on me as I thought it would have, but I still like enjoyed it a lot. And oh my god, the actual like the ending, all the characters, cause my god, are you fucking kidding me? It's Kaz and like Carlin for me. They're like very together on the same level in my head. I fucking love the characters. They're so like likable, which is weird because they're, you know, the bad guys, I guess. I don't know what this is about me. I think it's a very common thing actually to like the villains more than to like the good guys, I guess. I gave Crooked Kingdom 4 stars. I should give it a 4.5 honestly. But then we talk about A Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, Good Girl Pepwood, and As Good as Dead. I actually made a giant video on As Good as Dead. As I was reading it, I was commentating it, so if you guys want to watch that video, I'm gonna leave it somewhere. It's also on my channel, so you can go watch it. And I actually really fucking loved the trilogy as well. I fell in love with the trilogy, and I also fell in love with the way it progressed. So like the story goes from you know, I'm very curious who I wonder what's going on, to her actually murdering someone and covering it up with all the knowledge that she got from investigating murders and stuff like that. I thought it was a very interesting turn, because if the third book had been, you know, something bad goes wrong, something bad goes on, and then she finds out and then she solves a murder, and like that's that, I would have been kind of like bored of that by that point. So the fact that it kept like escalating, and even like the description of her being like continuously obsessed with having to solve murders and shit like that, I thought it was very interesting, because it is a commentary about like the commentary, like the true crime podcast and like the true crime content on YouTube and all that stuff. Because like she ends up creating like a podcast called A Good Girl's Guide to Murder on the second like book, and talking about like, to talk about like mysteries and murders and all that stuff. And I was like, I thought that was very interesting commentary. Obviously I don't think that every single person that does true crime is gonna kill someone and like cover it up, but I thought that the story and like the plot was very interesting, and also the characters are also very likable. I give them all 4 stars, by the way. Then we have November. We have Five Survive, The Foxhole Court, The Raven King, and The King's Man. Now this month was insane because it started, not started, but it gave me a new obsession, which is always good, question mark. First we're gonna talk about Five Survive. Five Survive is by Ollie Jackson and is by the same author of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder and like the trilogy. Five Survive was a really good book. I gave it a 4.5 stars. I really liked the story, I liked the characters. It was just like one book, like a standalone book, and I still really fucking enjoyed it. It was fantastic. I like the mystery, I like the plot. Like I said, I like the relation between the characters. I was like ugly sobbing by the end of it, so it was really good. And then we move on to All for the Game, which was a trip and a half. I made a video about it. I read The Foxhole Court, The Raven King, and The King's Man. Now, I still have the books right here on my bedstand because I occasionally pick them up and go through certain parts that I've like marked, because I know that I know where I want to read them again. But when I tell you this series absolutely ruined me, I am not joking in any way, shape or form. This is currently my newest obsession. Also, by the way, I think on Instagram there's like a thing going on where they're gonna release, with like the authorization of North Academic, they're gonna release like new versions of like the All for the Game series, which is very expensive. So if you guys want to subscribe to my coffee or give me money, if you guys want to go to my coffee and like donate, if you guys like the videos and you want to support me to buy the All for the Game set, you can go to my coffee. But oh my god, this is actually insane. Like the actual series, it gets to you so fast. It's not even funny. Like I love them so much. My like For You page on Instagram is filled with just fan art of All for the Game, which doesn't help that I sit there and I'll look at the fan art for hours. But and then like my favorite book, I think, is the last one, just because of like this is where the relation between Neil and Andrew kind of like escalates very fast. Obviously there's the moment of doesn't mean I wouldn't blow you, and also there's going to be a 4th book between between John. I'm like thinking about how the fuck do you say that in French. It would be Jean-Claude Van. So Jean, yeah, it would be Jean. Between John and like I guess Jeremy, it's gonna be called The Sunshine Court. And it's between, like I said, John and Jeremy. John's time at like the Ravens or whatever. And you bet your ass I'm gonna eat that up. I'm so gonna eat that up. Luna is playing with like a toy. This is were the last books that I read for like the year, and like I said, they took a chokehold on me. Oh my fucking god. I gave them all 5 stars. And the books that I'm currently reading, like I said, is If We Were Villains by Emil Rio. I'm on page 172, about to start Act 3. and also Beyond the Story, a 10-year record of BTS, and I'm on chapter 2 as well, about to start chapter 3. So I can't wait for next year where I'm going to read more books and be excited about more books, and new books are going to come out, even though I never really follow the releases of the year. I just read the books that I want to read. If you guys have any recommendations for like books that I should read, oh, if you watch the video to the end, you should comment. Doesn't mean I wouldn't blow you, just like with no context, just write that in the comments. see how that goes. But if you have any recommendations based on like the books that I said that I really loved, you can leave them in the comments as well. I accept all kind of book recommendations, so I'll take that, except for Sarah J Maas. I really don't want to read her fucking series. She has long ass books for no reason. Also, Fourth Wing, I think I'm gonna read at some point, so you don't need to recommend that. And yeah, besides that, any other recommendation? I mean, leave it to me, give it to me, give it to me. So yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow for another day of Vlogmas. Sorry for the interruptions, but I'm not gonna stop the kitties from playing. Bye bye.
That's nice.